Stories bring lessons, laughter, unforgettable experiences, and memories that far outlive the storytellers themselves. Great stories happen to those who can tell them. This is the Jackin Around podcast, hosted by two-time Academy of Country Music Award winner and master storyteller, Jack Ingram. And now to introduce today's guest, here is podcast producer, Matt PT2.
Thank you, Rowdy Yates. Welcome to part 2 of episode 5, presented by the Mile Zero Music Festival. Catch Jack, Lucinda Williams, Black Smoke Cherry, Randy Rogers, Pat Green, plus dozens of others in Key West, Florida from April 27th through May 1st. For more information, visit milezerofest.com. So today's guest, Drew Brown. Drew's career in music spans over 4 decades and includes opening the historic Blue Light Live in Lubbock, Texas back in 2000 to producing events, all the way from being on the road with some of the biggest names in country music, including Miranda Lambert, and to your host, Jack Ingram, from 2005 through 2012, to most recently as Jason Aldean's production manager from 2015 to 2020. To recap part 1, Drew and Jack share war stories about those 6 years being on the road together, and concluded with Drew visiting with Jack about being backstage at the Route 91 Music Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada, during what now is the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. To put part 2 into context, here's the last few minutes of part 1 put into a 30-second clip.
We're into about 6 songs, and the 7th, when she said baby, is when it started. Stage manager comes to me and says, "Hey man, are there some fireworks that we don't, going on that we don't know about?" And at this point, I'm kind of unpinning to hear like, what's going on? And then that's when a third burst and it came across the stage. And I heard it. Ting, ting, ting.
For an hour, Drew went over in detail about that horrific night and discussed with Jack what he felt comfortable with sharing on this part of the podcast. So before we begin, some quick housekeeping notes provided below in the description and at jackinaroundpodcast.com are Jack and Drew's bios, links to listen on your favorite audio platform, connect on social media, and to visit the website. If you enjoy this podcast, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Here's part 2 of episode 5. Enjoy.
All right. So, PT2, we rolling?
Besides the accident, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah. Oh, God. Woof. Oof. So pretty heavy, huh?
Yeah. It's about as heavy as it gets.
Yeah. So
it's I can see why you wouldn't want to ever talk about it with any kind of cavalier mindset, well, which I hope that didn't come across as being cavalier. It's just you and I have talked about many things over the years. Nothing that heavy.
Well,
it's a life-changing thing.
Oh, absolutely. And this is crazy. That incident broke the record and is now the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. The previous record holder was here in Austin, Texas, University Tower, which my mother was in a university at that time, was in a bookstore, saw a commotion in the street, walked out with one of her dorm mates, and her dorm mate was shot and killed right in front of her.
So when you came home after all the stuff that you went through, and you went to see your mother, I bet that was quite a comfort for her, just to have just to be able to have an understanding,
an understanding, but a knowing mother. But I mean, just a mother's hug, and all that stuff. And she also knew at that time not to oversaturate with that. I need to rephrase that. Let me slow down here. In the trauma situations, there's so many emotions and endorphins and everything it's just the dump of everything because you're using so much of your fight or flight mechanism. And that is something that no matter how much training you have, no matter how much, of a ninja badass you are, when that chemical triggered, you have no control over it. Mm-hmm. And so some people that have the flight code, if you will, they will come back and have what's known as survivor's guilt or something like that. It's like, well, I wouldn't have done something. Well, you have no control over that. And,
right.
After you hearing the story, I'm definitely not that person. Right. I have the fight mentality. And that was during the shooting. This is, I was asked, I did an hour and a half video deposition that, kind of FBI kind of thing, that kind of stuff. A couple of weeks after the incident in Nashville. And one of the questions was, what kind of feelings did you feel during that emotions? And I remember very clearly, and I still remember very clearly, I had zero emotion whatsoever, very laser focus on a lot of that stuff. But I remember for a brief moment having a moment of rage and anger about when the fuck are they going to kill this motherfucker? Mm-hmm. Like it's, oh my God, this is out of control. I mean, we were shot at for almost 11 minutes, buddy. 11 minutes. So in that time frame, 11 minutes doesn't seem long in the asp of a day, but put machine gun fire for 11 minutes and start a timer and think about that. And so like after that November, right before Thanksgiving, I was asked to come speak at the International Event Safety Alliance. It was held in Rockledge, Pennsylvania. And when we had come back on tour, we had a team that we referred to as the Sheepdogs, because one of them had made a comment of like, just remember, a wolf in sheep's clothing, but we're just the sheepdogs that watch over the flock, right? And it was some hyper intelligent, they had special forces and, they were really good, but they weren't there in a sense of presence to protect us. They were more there to kind of observe of what's going on and to help us adapt our situation and our environment moving forward with that. So one of those guys had done 10 different tours. They're in the meat of all the stuff that was going on in the Middle East. And he had been in over 250 registered gunfights. And he's like, this isn't me, taking pop shots here and there, getting shot at. This is me, a full team engaging over 250 times. Mm-hmm. And that night before he came to Rockledge with me to speak with me. And he goes, the night before, he goes, dude, what you went through in Vegas, I never went through. I've never been. And like all of those FBI guys that, they are badasses, number one. And, of the 9 days I spent with them out there, they're humans too. But they had never dealt with a crime scene of that magnitude, that size. And I don't know if this holds true. And I hope this will never change, that will always be the biggest, because God forbid anything else happen of that magnitude. But they had done a shipyard, I think in Florida was the one before that. So they too acted very human with me in the senses they had never dealt with that either.
Right.
So, in that kind of healing process, we definitely lean on each other and a lot of that human things. But as a point to it, the FBI I was very surprisingly sensitive to a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I have since befriended a couple of the guys, and one of the lead guys that was on it is a dear friend of mine now. And we stay in touch a lot. And his job is like anything that happens around any of the, these states, he flies to it. Like he did the Parkland thing and things. It's like, man, could you imagine dealing with that, you know, the magnitude of that. Now, he's good at what he does because he has a personal touch. But once you absorb so much of that stuff, you have to put that somewhere.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And I was very, very adamant about all of my crew and getting help, go get help. And not only the trauma and the severity that they went through, you need to also realize that their loved ones back home, thousands of miles away, also went through a trauma.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so that's what's, you know, the military, especially some of those special forces guys, one of the worst things in a situation of trauma, a fight or flight kind of situation, is if you're in an environment where you can't do anything about your natural reaction. So for instance, what I mean by this, let's say I'm a fight person, and if I get put in that situation, I need to fight, but I can't due to, like, let's say I'm sitting in a helicopter or something and there's nowhere to go, you know? And let's say you're a flight guy and there's nowhere to run because you're pinned in a little bunker, right? So that is even more traumatic on the brain and the psyche because you're not allowed to do what you're naturally trying to do, right? So I pushed a lot of the crew, get help for, you know, and 99.99 of them did.
Right. Now, when you were telling me the story of the replaying it for me, what you remember of it, you could do you did what you could do.
That's it.
You were active as if by instinct.
Yeah. And a lot of the crew guys are going through what's called survivor's guilt. And it's like, man, I was there. I wish I could have done more. I could have done more. I don't really have any of that survivor's guilt. I did everything I could.
Right.
And as you know from my story, I came across situations that weren't part of my crew per se, but I couldn't not do something. So
well, being there for some of the passages that you witnessed from this world to another.
Yeah.
That has an effect on, like, it's almost like you the way you were describing it, in those moments, you knew those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you know, the following days after that happened, and as I told you earlier, that, you know, it took 11 days for our stuff to get off the stage, and everybody, of course, was back home except for me. I was still out there, and I spent 9 days of those 11 out there dealing with all of that situation. While everybody else was getting support, not only from their loved ones, but also professional help. You know, Music Care Now's, if you have an extra nickel or anyone, give to them. Anyway, it's unheard of what they stepped up to do. Now, all that said, in a very odd way, and what I was telling you is where they put me after that, I was in the MGM. My room overlooked, and I'll show you a video of this in a bit. Straight out was the window. Straight down to the right was the entire scene. So
you just sat there reliving it.
Yes and no. I later learned on, like, flashbacks and things that people have, and a lot of the crew members were having. Even when we'd gone back on the road, there was numerous of them were having a lot of trouble sleeping, would have, you know, numerous flashbacks. What I later learned from a trauma healing workshop that I attended for a week in 2019, a flashback is your mind replaying that just because it doesn't know what really happened. And what they call, like, PTSD anorexia. It's like some are just the opposite. Some are, you know, have constant fear. Some have other things, but it also can be a trigger for other traumas that had popped up in their lives. And, I was in a situation where kind of my path was, and as you know me, and my ex-wife will tell you this as well. After 2 years, I was having some, I don't want to call them issues. I couldn't overcome some things. And I use this as a reference because you know me and my little analogies. So like I'm in a truck, and a brand new truck, and everything's fine with the truck, and I'm driving down a dirt road, and I slide off the dirt road. And I can't, and I'm stuck. Nothing's wrong with the truck. The truck's perfectly fine. It's just stuck. And I couldn't get myself unstuck. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in a dark spot, but just I felt this sense of something's about to happen. I don't know if it's going to be bad, good, but just something's coming. Not necessarily, not in a fearful way of something's coming after me. It was just this, something's there. Mm-hmm. And this started getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Well, as the universe works, that energy started showing me these little signs, these little things, this little things. And, I took those in as, I'm going to give you one last chance to get some help before the, whatever's coming, it's going to get sent, right?
Right.
My ex-wife called because, as you know, we're still dear, dear, dear friends. And she said, hey, I've got an extra ticket to go see Cat Powers. And so I went, telling her, it's like, I'm really contemplating. I think I need to get some help here. And we went and saw that show. And at the end of her show, which powerful, you've never seen her live, she said something on stage that just sent me to tears. Then
what'd she say?
It's more of a reference with the universe. She's like, there's so much hate. There's so much things out in the universe. I just want to thank everyone for being here and surrounding me with love. And we forget sometimes that I can't really quote it exactly, but it's more like to be loved or doing things that we love don't always love us back. That's what she was saying. And she's like, and then she said, I just want to thank you for being here and loving me. And it sparked another reference. So let's say the next day I fly out to fly out to Nashville, and I'm doing this Pandora event. And this organization was there giving an award in correlation to this trauma thing. And one of the speakers that they had was the gentleman in Nashville that had stepped up and rescued at that Waffle House shooting that had occurred. And he was speaking in front of this audience. And there were some friends that were there that were receiving some awards that were in the front row. And I'm backstage because we're going to do this little pop-up surprise. I'm sitting on the side of the stage and I'm watching this guy. And he just freezes and stops. And he turns and does this 1,000,000-mile stare across. And if you don't know what that is, and I didn't know it before, like veterans and military and things like that, they always reference that. I didn't know what that was. But then after the Vegas thing, I knew exactly what it was. Exactly what that feeling was.
What is it?
It's just staring off into literally the void of everything. But it's I don't know what's physically, chemically happening in the brain. And you know me, I'm always one of those, I need to know how the mechanism works. It's just this, it's like almost like this white noise just pulling out, but you can't do anything when that's going on. So it pushed me. So at this event, once I saw that guy do this 1,000,000-mile stare, the people giving the award to this gentleman was a thing called On-Site. And it's a wonderful facility. Well, another one of my friends, you remember Metallica Lindsay?
Mm-hmm.
Remember? She's my rock as well. She had sent me a text that afternoon. She's like, hey, my friend from On-Site is going to be there. I would love for you to talk to her. And we did a cordial handshake kind of in the things, but nothing from that. That was yet another sign. So I saw that night, saw the pain, but just saw the loss and saw the void. And I'm like, that's it. And so I go to the airport because I'm flying back that evening, like at midnight. And I go to the airport. My flight was like, 5 a.m. the next morning. So I'm going to go sleep at the airport. And I get there and there's this kid, probably 18, 19 years old, just startled. And he got there probably about 3 a.m. and had never flown before in his life. And this is an amazing story. And I don't want to get into too many details about it. If you don't believe in higher powers, that person was put in my life as my last final sign. I had the most amazing experience just taking care of this kid that had nothing. Jack, when we got to DFW, the kid had never been on an escalator, let alone in a plane. Now, when we were boarding, I had a first class flight because I usually rack up the miles, and I had been upgraded to first class. And I walked up to the lady at the counter and I said, there's a kid that's his first time ever. You see him over there. And I pointed and I said, he's in seat, things right in the middle in the back. And I said, I'm going to sit in his seat and he's going to sit in my first class. I want his experience. And there's a lot of other things that had happened in between that. Just he and I kind of palling up and just tucking him underneath my wing kind of thing. And the stewardess on the plane, when the flight attendants found out what I had done, he comes and says, Mr. Brown, anything you want. I'm like, no, I just want him. I don't want anything about it. I want him to have a good experience. So I landed that next day. When I landed, I called Tara. I said, I'm going. I don't care what it cost. I called my friend Lindsay in Nashville. I was like, I'm going. I don't care what it cost. And On-Site changed my life, man.
How long were you there?
A week. And they do multiple, different I don't want to use the word treatment because it's not that kind of things. They do have a 30, 60, 90-day kind of treatment program, but that's on a different kind of campus in a different part of the campus. Where we it's in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee, in from the 1700s, this old school mansion, and they've got these beautiful cabins. And the trauma healing workshop that I was at, your first name only. You're not allowed to talk about your profession, and that's kind of where they draw the line. And you hints after the group we were a community of about 48 of us actually, and then we broke down into 4 smaller groups.
All there for
8.
Different reasons.
Oh, absolutely, buddy. When I talk about, I later found out many of these people are powerful CEO peoples, running the game, right? But just stuck.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. I'll tell you later some of the stories from them. Oof. Think we had it bad? So there's a community of 48. Then there was 4 different groups that broke out of groups of 8, which we called our family. And that's not what they referred to. That's just what we called it. And then there were some that was there doing an intensive one-on-ones. Well, anyway, fast forward.
4 groups of 8 equals 32.
Did you not hear? I said, then some of them are doing intensives one-on-one.
Just messing with you.
Don't you do math on me, buddy. So, yeah, man, changed my life. And those people will forever hold in a special place, because we're going into a room of complete and total strangers, and within a week walking out, because we're all talking about the deepest, darkest of all darks. And you know my backstory, and you know I had a wonderful childhood, and I had some things that started happening when I was 19, and you know lost some people very, very, very close to me.
Right.
And then I had some more loss a few years later of another incident, and you know all of that. And I was packing away a lot of this stuff, right? So I don't want to say process, but a lot of is dealing with that struggle of how the body reacts to trauma. And there was a correlation that through some research that another doctor had done where trauma is stored in the lungs, okay? So I'm not going to get into their in-depth process, but let's go back to that thing where the little fight or flight brain that is holding on to information. What they basically, the trick and the magic behind it is they release and get these two brains communicating again. And this brain says, finally lets go of the information. All I was doing is protecting. This one's like, thank you for telling me. Okay, now we're back streaming. And that's the mentality of living a life where basically both of those are living in a sequence. Now, what happens in some people's trauma is we pack it away. And there's a great, fantastic book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's a very dense read with a lot of research-based stuff, but it's that correlation of we pack it literally away into our body, because if the mind can't deal with it, it then shoves it into the body. And if the body doesn't get it off and out of you, it just twists it up somewhere, no matter where it might be. And the lungs being one of the most powerful ones of those. So, yeah, man, I learned some amazing tricks that I will forever be grateful. Now, I've become a lot more self-aware, yet I still do struggle sometimes. It's really stupid, but we as humans sometimes go to what we feel is the easiest path or just the things when it really is the most difficult process to dealing with something.
Right.
Instead of just stepping back, stopping, breathing, taking 2 seconds, 5, whatever, and then accomplishing it.
Right.
But instead we get so wrapped up, go, do this. And that in turn changed my life. But what it also gave me, and what was my biggest pain, was I was seeing crew members struggling, even though majority of them were getting professional help in the correct way. They were still struggling with something. And what hurt me the most is I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't know. And I'm definitely still not a professional, psychiatrist or anything like that. But it gave me the tools to also be a lot more, not only self-aware of what's going on with me, but aware of someone else. Like, hey man, this one's about to go. And then grab, taking them and whatever way that person needed, just away from that. It's like, okay, let's just step away. Okay, let's do this. Or, you know what? Hey man, why don't we do this? Or
now, of the 76 crew members,
band
and crew that were there, how many are still on the road with you guys?
Roughly about 50. Some stepped away and retired. Some had some other health issues pop up. Some others popped in some other camps. And this is crazy. That next year after that, because when that incident occurred, we were really close to kind of the tail end of the tour. So I think we only had like maybe 9 shows left, and that we kind of finished up. That next year, we had done a performance at the CMA at the stadium, at their Nissan stadium. And I'd found out that there was going to be a fireworks show. And I informed all my crews, like, okay, guys, right after, immediately following Jason's performance, there's going to be fireworks. They're going to be big. They're going to be coming from here. Everybody knew what was going on, including the band. And they went off, and it's like, oh, okay, thank God I knew that, and thank God. And they were coming to me. It's like, thank God you told us about that, because that would have been fucking traumatic.
Yeah.
And so then I took that knowledge. It's like, oh shit, well, wait a second. Not all of the 76 are with us out this next tour. So I found out where they were and what tour they were on. So I was also advancing those people's tours if they were checking those towns to see if there were fireworks, and would call either their tour manager or production manager, or physically call that one person. And it's like, hey man, I know you're out with so-and-so and in, Buchanan, Wisconsin, but hey buddy, I need to tell you that there's going to be a fireworks show. Yeah. And So
it's a continual.
Oh, and that's
process.
The other thing. And, I'd hints after, that speaking engagement that I did with the International Event Safety Alliance. And these are people from all over the world, like people at soccer stadiums and blah, 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 of all walks of life in the touring field. And I spoke at South by Southwest. And one of the panel that I was on, one of the girls that had lived through the Virginia Tech shooting. And she had started a company called Live Safe that offers a lot of tools that are helping out as well. And she and I kicked it pretty hard, and she's good people's. And she had a complete and total kind of career path change to, I have information that I want to share with people so that if ever that incident were to occur again. And so I took that same mentality in a lot of ways, and Jason's tour manager and I both, we can't be the face to that incident out there, because we're not, and we're not going to let it define us yet. If there's information that I know from getting shot at for 11 minutes that might help in another situation down the road for someone else. So as I spoke at, in both of those speaking engagements, it's like, I can't do it by myself. We have to do it as a community. So a lot of this in the change, and that's what we're kind of working with. I can't do it as a single. We have to do it as a whole. And a lot of these things are what we've turned a blind eye to that are quote unquote industry standards. Like, oh, that's just the way it is. Don't worry about that. And that's the way it's been for years. Well, I'm fucking done with that. We know it's wrong. It's been wrong for years. And it's not something that just broke or needs to change now. It's just like, oh, that's just the way it is.
Give me an example.
Security issues involving screening, security issues involving lax perimeter, security or evacuation protocols, evacuation information, and what I mean by that is like, don't worry about it. Right. And some people's mentality, here's a great example. On the security side of things, too many venues have, through the years, are hiring hammers. And what I mean by that is if you're a hammer, all you're looking for is a nail. Poof. That's it. It's not an attack situation that you need to bring this mentality into. And this is something that we learned from some of our special forces friends that came out with us. And later, some of them, helped us out with a lot of that. One of our friends works for the Secret Service. I think I can say this. He goes, dude, you know what the biggest tool that we have is? It's nothing but doing anything, special that not everybody has. Our biggest thing is in our name, Secret. Now, they're informed. Everybody knows what that information is. We're just not letting that go out everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So now keeping that tool in our situation puts in protocols. So at our touring level, we have a protocol. On the internal bubble level, we have a different protocol. Everybody knows that. And then what we're trying to do is we were showing up to these venues, and some of these quote unquote security directors at these venues were hammers. They were just that mentality. I've been doing this shit 45 years. Don't you tell me. I got the biggest boys across the county. They'll crack skulls. I'm like, whoa, we're not cracking skulls, baby. We're in the entertainment business. We're here to entertain. These people pay our salaries. Mm-hmm. So it's changed the things like, let's have an open communication with this, but then that also spins into a safety mechanism as well. And what I mean, like we'd show up to gigs and the local union guy's like, man, this is my 6th day in a row. I hadn't slept. I slept in the car. It's like, dude, and that guy's about to hang 95,000 fucking pounds over our head. Whoa. Right. So that's what I mean by turning a blind eye. No one is dealing with this stuff. It's like, whoa, okay. But I'm also not there because if you go in as a hammer, if that mentality and try to push that around, there's not going to be any change, buddy. Because what's going to happen is at the end of the night, you're going to climb on your tour bus and you're going to talk shit on how bad they were, right? Guess what? They're going to go to their car, their bar, whatever, and they're going to talk shit about how bad you were that whole time. Instead of a communication could have happened earlier on or before, and that's all alleviated. Just some understanding on both sides.
Sounds like the real world. Sounds like what we're dealing with.
Dude, if it was that easy, though.
That's what I mean. What we deal with every day on TV and politics and everything. It's just this miscommunication with a bunch of hammers.
Dude. So, how do we change to push the hammers out? Well, stop accepting it. Right? So, again, it's not going to change the industry if I'm like, I'm going to be the one that has to have this or demands this or this is the way it's going to be. It has to be a whole. So we collectively in the industry is like, nope, not acceptable. I know it's there, and it's even at the level of a booking agent. Guys that drive a desk for a living and girls that drive a desk for a living. It starts with them too. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to communicate this to the buyer, to the promoter, to whomever. And even getting down to the fans too. You need to realize it's like, look, we're in the fun business, right? Some of the hammers that were going, well, you need to have this and snipers on this and machine guns at this and have this. I'm like, wait a second, dude. We're in the fun business. If it stops being fun at our concerts, guess what? People don't go. And guess what? We don't have a job. So we have to keep this fun.
Yeah.
But safe. Cool.
Hey man, thanks for talking.
Dude, sorry, man. I mean, there's you and we could talk for years.
Absolutely.
But
I know this was, I wasn't, I'm not sure I was prepared for the weight that you've been carrying.
Yeah.
When we first started talking about it, I thought hey man, how did this make you feel? What were you thinking? And I realized now that, true trauma is not, it's a lot, it's affected every facet of your life and of your psyche. And so you opening up even as much as you did about what's going on and what happened and how it affected everybody on that tour, everybody in that audience. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's affected the entire entertainment industry since. And
the other side of this, and I need to say this, if whatever, all 25 people are going to watch this, sorry, buddy. It's not
27.
27, sorry. It's not a gun issue, right? It wasn't a security issue. One of the lead guys from the FBI that we became close with, right before, about a little after a year, they said, man, I'm sorry, we didn't find anything. What it was a mental illness issue. And what's so sad is it's easier to go buy any kind of weaponry than it is to go get some mental fucking help.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
They'll give you drugs for $10 copay.
You know me.
But you got to pay $150 to go see a psychiatrist.
Exactly right. You know me. I'm a gun guy and always will be. Yet, it's not a gun issue. It's a mental health issue. So, the other side of that, the conspiracy theories, there was 9 things. I don't give a fuck if there were 75 shooters, 58, now 60 dead. 890 something injured. Right? Just because one person couldn't get the help they needed.
What's the name of the organization you guys are starting in Nashville?
Well, again, we don't really want, as I was saying, want to put a face to this. There's a lot of other, let's just put it this way. We're helping out a lot of other organizations. All right? That's easy enough to put it that way. I don't think we want to put a brand to this because we don't want to profit from any of this. What it is communication. Mm-hmm. As an industry as a whole, if I know something that could help you and I don't tell you, that's neglect, right? But if there's information that I have and tools that I have, it's communication. And guess what? 99% of the time, that person I say that to, it's like, oh man, that's cool. We've also been doing this and found out this works. Or after y'all's thing out there in Vegas, we implemented this and we found out that this works. It's like, cool, that's great. You know what, do you mind if I share that? And it's like, absolutely. So it's communication, talking, not necessarily about how to do this, nor gloating about, oh, we're doing this, we're all badass. It's this, quote, that secret servicey kind of mentality where we're keeping this as a secret so it's still a fun business, yet we're changing that internal kind of mentality of how the inner workings are worked.
Right.
Right?
Right, to where it works without being noticed.
And I've told you this, I'm super proud that I make my living in the shadows. I've never been one in front of lights. You are just the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. It takes us both.
That's right.
Right? And in that mentality, we're all in that game, you know. If you're scrubbing toilets or if you're a cowboy hat wearing, screaming in a microphone for 90 minutes, at that one event, it takes us all to pull that off. And it's opening up those communications on all of that level for us to change.
Thanks for being here, man.
Love you. It's good stuff.